Good morning, Dual Coast fans. Welcome back to another powerful episode of Dual Coast Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Skoka, joined by my West Coast co-host, Russ Rogers, joined by an amazing guest this morning, Dr. Remina Panjwani. Dr. Remina, thank you so much for being here this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course.
You know, after reading your bio a few days back, I just feel like, wow, this is an impressive woman, which I knew when I met you in San Francisco at our June's conference. It was absolutely amazing. So to be able to spend a little bit of time with you was fantastic. And to have you as a guest on our podcast is absolutely amazing. So thank you for coming and being a part of Dual Coast.
Yes.
So I have, I was just telling you off air that I never read a person's bio, but today is going to be a little bit different, okay? Because I'm going to read a portion of it because I want to do you justice, Dr. Remina. First of all, Dr. Remina is a U.S. military veteran, and I want to stop right there, okay? Because I want to say thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, and we'll dive into a little bit of that and find out, about your past and everything. But again, thank you for your service and what you've done for our country. She is a best-selling author and internationally sought keynote speaker, International Impact Award recipient, and board-certified internal medicine physician specializing in functional medicine. Now you understand why I didn't try to do this on my own. It's just packed because your history of life is loaded with good stuff, And so thank you for everything. She also, and this is the last thing, she helps high achievers, leaders restore health, clarity, and longevity by integrating Western medicine with nervous system science, ancient wisdom, and lifestyle optimization. Yeah. Have Russ try to memorize that. No thanks. So let's go back. Let's get on to you. Let's talk about your military background.
Yeah.
Tell us kind of how that, came on. What was the initial inclination that said, Dr. Remina, at that time, what was it that really inspired you to join the military service?
The generic answer back then was I wanted to just serve my country and go do something meaningful. But as I look back now in my 40s, I look back, it was actually a journey more than I thought I was going to receive. It built who I am today. And to be fair, and when you're 17, 18 years old, your brain isn't fully developed. You're still growing. So I think I was searching for myself. That is my correct answer. And I was working on my self-worth. That is the true, honest, raw answer. And I got more than I thought I would. Of course, there was a financial and educational pathway for me because I come from an immigrant family and we grew up basically living paycheck to paycheck. And I'm the first generation to get a college education. So I had to pave the way, I had to figure out the way and get the resources. So naturally, I was like, hey, military will do all that and more. So fast forward, I graduated high school, and coming from a South Asian background too, there was a lot of cultural, societal pressures and expectations. And my parents would just say, well, just get married and have kids. But it just wasn't fulfilling, and I wanted more. So when I went to the military, I got deployed. This was 2003, 2004. I got deployed. I was in Baghdad, Iraq, a teenager, basically. And
yeah, that was eye-opening.
Yeah,
it definitely was. And this was one of the most impactful turning points that I still remember. There was a huge explosion that was a near miss, and I'm so grateful for that. And it was then where I knew I had to take things into my own hands. I needed to get out of my own way and figure it out if I wanted to. I'm alive for a reason, right? So I need to make an impact in some way. And the first way I knew how is to get an education. So then I had the knowledge to have the skills that will be everlasting, and it would also build my self-worth for anyone otherwise that would challenge that. Education was part of the key. And so that was just part of the journey. So that's what that funded me, that got me forward. And I learned a lot. I learned grit even more, even though there's things in childhood that builds you through it, but then you're faced with it in the military, in a war zone. You learn hard work values on top of, what you've been through. And it built my confidence, and it started building upon my self-worth.
That's amazing. I got to believe, Dan, what do you think about this? That Dr. Remina is not living paycheck to paycheck any longer.
Very fortunate. It took a long time.
Hey, a lot of hard work, right? It paid off.
Yeah.
So, those hard times back and then taught you some life lessons.
Sure.
To help you and the military, to help you with where you are today.
Absolutely. And even a broader mission to change the trajectory of my family. That was also something I didn't want to continue. You could call it generational trauma. I didn't want to continue that.
Yeah. Wow. Outstanding.
Yeah, that's amazing. Dr. Remina, were you a physician in the military also?
No, I went straight from high school, enlisted. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Interesting. I want to get into the medicine aspect of things a little bit. So quick question for you here. You talk a lot about the root cause medicine of things. So instead of just symptom management, what do you think conventional medicine misses most often today when people are told that their lab results look normal, but they still feel out of it? They don't feel good. They feel terrible, tired, achy, things like that. What do you think we miss in conventional medicine today?
Oh, I see that so frequently. A lot of my clients, and having practiced on both sides, still practicing on both sides, I get to bridge that gap. And that is when we're in medical school, when we're in training, conventional system teaches you, it's a reactive bandage approach. It's helpful for certain things like stroke, heart attack. Absolutely. You want that bandage approach.
Sure.
But there's a big gap when you look at root cause. You're looking at symptoms as itself, as diagnosis in conventional medicine. When you go deeper and uncover root cause, you're looking at all the contributing factors, right? You're looking at, well, what truly is the fatigue? What is causing your stress or hormones imbalance? What is that? And you dig into not only your environment, but also your lifestyle, like your sleep, what are you eating, your exercise, are you doing the right things for your body, mind, body, and spirit as well, because it's all connected. We're a complex body of systems that is all one unit, and it needs to function. Then, of course, you add in the modern advanced science with labs, and it gives you the tools for your own personalized approach. So conventional medicine is standard or reactive. In the functional aspects, you really dig into root cause that's personalized to you, and you look at everything.
Sure. Absolutely. I'm going to piggyback on that question real quick. Stress is something that's overlooked greatly in medicine, in my opinion. What's your take on what stress actually does to the body? And do you think a lot of times the hormonal imbalance people may have is maybe not truly a hormonal imbalance, but more of a societal factor, stress related?
Oh, absolutely. And it's more common than people think. And it's coming to light more often because people are burning out. Well, what is the term burnout, right? It's your nervous system on stress gone unchecked. And if you dive in, and I'll just do a brief explanation of what that does to your body.
Sure.
If you break down your nervous system, it's your parasympathetic, your rest and digest, and your fight or flight, your sympathetic nervous system. There's also a third one. It's called the enteric nervous system. It's your gut. So oftentimes it's all it's all dysregulated, not just the hormones, but you'll also have like gut and everything else. But essentially what happens is, think about if you're constantly stressed, right? Our bodies are designed as, it was protective back in the days. Like if you're getting chased by a bear and you need to escape, right? That's important. But what happens is eventually you stop. You have a period to rebalance. In our modern society, we have so many stressors, right? Our body doesn't know the difference between physical stress or thinking stress. And now you think about what you're consuming, right? Not just what you're eating, but social media and everything else out there. That's a stress because your body will interpret it that way. So say you're thinking you have maybe underlying trauma, or you're stressed for a relationship or a job. And then on top of that, you're eating processed foods, or you have some underlying inflammation and there are certain foods that trigger it. throw in scrolling, doom scrolling, all that, it's a stressor, right? So going back to that nervous system, there's so much adrenaline and other imbalances and neurotransmitters that help, but then gone unchecked long term, it gets imbalanced. It gets you to the fight or flight response. And specifically, there's something called cortisol. In functional medicine, you can actually measure this. And cortisol, what does is if that's elevated, you don't want to do anything else, right? You don't want to stop. You don't want to digest your food, your hormones, your sexual drive, everything goes out the door. So what does that do in terms of symptoms wise, right? You get brain fog, maybe your blood sugar's off balance, and then you start noticing a change in weight. You lose muscle. So then you also have maybe thinning hair, and it just goes on and on and on. And it ties into an imbalanced nervous system. Yeah. So when you look at that, how long can you go trying to be functional, right? There's going to be a stage where you're burning out. And what I see is people, when they reach that, anything could set it off, right? It could just, maybe you have a small cold, but then you're so depleted that it tips you over. So what I like to do is I like to emphasize that give yourself permission to pause. And there's ways to do that. Instead of doing more, step back and rebalance what your body needs. Even something simple, getting back to the basics like breath work, right? Even it takes 30 seconds to tell your body that your nervous system is safe, right? And so tapping into things like that, going out in nature, eating the right types of food, exercising the right way, all those have a big impact.
Wow. So take us through your day. Okay. Just, from the time that you wake up, take us through just what we would call a normal day in your life of Dr. Remina. How does that look, and where does balance and everything fit into the things that you're talking about here as you help other people?
Oh gosh. So it depends. Not every day is the same. I'll pick up shifts at the hospital. So those are naturally more stressful, and I need to make sure I balance myself. And then I also have 2 little kids. So I need to make sure I wake up before them and balance myself. Sometimes it doesn't work. We're not, that's life. And that's the thing. You got to find your moments and create it, regardless of how busy you are. And then if I'm traveling or whatever my entrepreneurial day looks like. But in general, I stick to the basics. I make sure as soon as I wake up, I'm not looking at my phone. That's the first thing. I just lay there, I just breathe, and I connect to myself, because just the simple acts of being present, breathing, regulating yourself, getting your nervous system regulated, your circadian rhythm is also affected, right? If your cortisol and melatonin, your sleep hormone, are balanced by simple things, it also ties into a better health, but also, your sleep, wake, and nervous system cycle. Then looking at just the simple things. If you look at gratitude. So I not only do my breath work, I'll do like a simple meditation, but also starting with gratitude, because science shows that gratitude can rewire your brain, neuroplasticity.
Yes. That's good.
That's great.
And it's amazing because, ancient advice, like you would practice these things, but science is showing you this too. It's measuring it. So they can say, okay, yes, it's showing it's true. So, but nonetheless, like simple acts of breathing, being present, not looking at the screen, meditating, doing a gratitude journal. Those are just the simple things that help me get set for the day. If I don't do it, then I'm just, I'm all over the place. And if that happens, then I just find moments throughout the day to recenter and do that. Just even breath work or just a simple guided meditation. I have an app. If there's something that my mind is too busy. I don't have any stock in this, but it's a free app. It's called Insight Timer, and I take it with me wherever I go. I also, I love sound healing. Sound therapy is amazing. There's also lots of data that shows that it adjusts your brain waves. And so if you do whatever the technique you want, the key is to regulate yourself. And there's things that you can add in throughout the day should you have missed, the morning thing. And then I make sure when I get back into bed, I decompress and regulate myself before bed too, because those are the 2 peak moments that I like to tap into. When I wake up and before I go to sleep. Everything else.
So what does it do for somebody that immediately picks up their phone? What does that do to them right out of the gate, what tone does it set for their day?
Yeah. Well, the blue light signals to your brain that you're already in a stress mode. It dysregulates that cortisol response. And so what would be better is to get that first direct sunlight. It hits your retina in your eye and signals to your brain, and it regulates it better. So having even just a few minutes to not look at your phone does a lot for the day.
Yep. Yep.
Love that.
Yep. We live in such a hustle culture. And Russ, I'm sure you agree with this. And Dr. Mean, I'm sure you agree with this, that I'd say 90% of people, the first thing they do is grab that phone off their nightstand.
Yes.
They want to look at their email, check their texts in the night, see what calls they missed when they were sleeping. It's like the number one thing everybody does. And I mean, I try not to do it, but I'm still guilty of it too, because you live in
I can see it on your face. You're guilty.
I am 100%. 100%. One thing I actually learned on the iPhone, that I have an iPhone, is you could actually turn the red light mode on. So I started doing that later on at night. Whether it really helps me or not, I'm not sure, because I'm sure the screen still gives off a lot of blue light simultaneously. But I did try to start doing that. But it's so true that people they put themselves in a sympathetic state so fast as soon as they wake up that they don't down-regulate at all. They just constantly live in that state throughout the day. Mm-hmm. And then you play the dietary role in, and it all plays a role. And I was actually going to ask you that question. Now, say somebody wakes up and they kind of put themselves in the sympathetic state. They're flying a little bit. They're not down regulating. Now, their mental health is not great. What effect would you say people's mental health has on their gut health simultaneously?
Mm-hmm. I love that question, because they're the other nervous system I mentioned, the enteric nervous system, it's connected through your vagus nerve. It's one of the longest nerves in your body. And there's a gut-brain axis. It's bidirectional. It goes both ways. So if your gut's inflamed, your brain is inflamed, and vice versa. And a lot of research has come about this, some of the biggest institutions, Harvard, Johns Hopkins, and what it shows that there is a phenomenon. And when you look at the mental health aspects, there's a big, the gap is kind of closing in conventional medicine, because you can see there's so many aspects of not just adding medicines. The pharmaceutical grades are important if it's needed, but there's also other things you do. So if you have like a dysbiosis, or basically if your gut is off, you got to figure out what that root cause is. Is it inflamed because of certain foods that you may think that are healthy for you, but they're harming you because of the state you're in? Mm-hmm. If you're already stressed, that your gut is not going to want to work because you're in a stress response. You're in a fight or flight. You don't have time to rest and digest. So if you look at the foods that you're eating, some of the three common triggers of food intolerances that I've seen, especially in the United States, because I would say overseas, especially Europe, it's cleaner. Like you could eat wheat and grains and it's fine. But if you're here, I see a lot, and it shows that you have the common triggers like gluten, so wheat, dairy, and eggs. So what I have seen is if you take someone through a reset, like an elimination diet, it's not really a diet, it's resetting your gut, it's taking away potential triggers and giving yourself the right nourishing foods that are fresh, whole foods, good sources of protein, and then supplementing with enzymes or whatever else you need. And you rebuild it. It takes about 21 days to get the trigger out of your system, because your body builds an autoimmune response. And so not only, it could deposit anywhere. So it can deposit on your joints, and it can show up like as an autoimmune issue. So people may have joint pain and we get mistaken by that, a rash. And then if that's happening, then of course your gut too. So maybe you're not absorbing the right nutrients or building blocks to build neurotransmitters that affect your mood. That's just part of it. But then if you look at, if your blood sugar is not regulated, well, you may get, true word, hangry. But like there's so much that goes into it, like anxiety, depression, whatever you want to label it. But there's a root cause, and that's a gut-brain axis. So when you look at the data, if you combine the lifestyle and get to root cause, you can either de-prescribe pharmaceutical medicines, or if you're not on it, you get regulated. And a little other something else I want to chime in is plant medicine is coming forward. And I know in our current state, we don't we're moving forward to more openness in that, especially in mental health and in PTSD, because it's been shown how it restructures your brain and it can help you long term. So I think that's also something to look out for, is how plant medicine will eventually start adding more therapeutic options.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
It seems like there is, we're in as far as mental health, we're like at an all-time high, and it seems like more people are addressing, the mental health issues. What is it? Why do you think that we're in such a state here in America with mental health issues? Why is that?
Well, I think there's still a stigma. It's getting better. Like before, you would just get labeled, oh, you're having panic attacks, you have PTSD, let's do this pharmaceutical medicine. And that's the bandage, which comes with side effects. And maybe if you get just basic tools, but it's better than nothing, but it goes deeper. There's more to get to root cause. There's so many different modalities. And sources. If you know about it, then the more educated you are and aware you are, then you're gonna look for those answers and get the help you need. So I think as more is coming forward, there is more access slowly. There in certain places, other states and cities definitely have more to work on, but it's just I think there's going to be more of a, if there's more of a gap to close between information and access, and lowering that stigma, then people will be more apt to looking for those. And I think, especially if you look at the high performing people, right? Sometimes they don't know what the signs of burnout and mental health is, because if you're high functioning, you're not going to present like the typical symptoms of anxiety and depression.
Right.
It shows up differently, right? You're going to have just maybe a little bit of brain fog, or if you're hyperactive, then you have checklist to checklist. You can't stay present. And then your markers, if you get any lab testing, or if you even check a simple test like HRV, right, heart rate variability, those things are going to be just off. They're going to be imbalanced. So a high performing individual is going to present differently from just a normal population. So I think that also goes back to awareness too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that's also where some of these mental health issues arise from, is people see all these high performers and they don't show any signs of burnout. And they're always, they normalize that burnout and they're always on the go and stuff like that. And other people are like, how come I'm not there? How come I'm not at that stage? And it kind of weighs on them a little bit, because they're saying, all right, I'm doing the same thing. Why are they there, but I'm here? And they keep normalizing that burnout. But, also what you see might not even be true, or might not even be real. And other people take that into account, like, wow, like I'm doing everything they're doing. How come I'm not at that stage?
Yeah.
And I think that weighs on a lot of people. And I hate to say it, but I think social media is a big part of this too, as far as like mental health issues to nowadays. And I mean, it's hard to normalize, because what you see and what's actually happening could be two different things. And a lot of people believe it though, and I think it kind of weighs on them.
Oh, absolutely. Like I have, for myself, for example, I do have high functioning anxiety, right? And it took me a while to recognize that. But what that looks like to me is I have an endless checklist and I have to constantly perform. And I've done it for years. I've done it because lives, like if I'm in a life or death situation with a person, like I need to function. I need to push things aside and then get back to it. But what it looks like now on a normal day is I could be at the park with my little boy and I'm trying to be present and like maybe be there, whatever he wants to do in his little toddler mind. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I have to do this. Did I do that? Do it, and then it's like not able to settle down. And I have to break that pattern. I have to make sure, take the effort to be present, because the present moment is all we really have. And
That's right.
Kids are going to grow. Whatever you have in front of you, that moment's going to be gone until you're present. And that's the time that you have, the memories that you have. So having the reframes, having the tools to figure out what you need, because if you fuel your cup, the things that fill you up that are important, that actually gives you better longevity in the long term as well. And it goes back to putting more into your cup. And that's why I block out time to make sure I go do something for myself every day. If I get to go do like an hour-long yoga class, I will do that. If I get to go go hit the weights at the gym, or just simple walk outside in nature and just be present. Those are the little things that sprinkle in what brings you joy, and refuels your cup. Because the checklist is going to be there. You're going to constantly find something to perform at the next level. But I think it's just things that ground you in finding your balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about brain fog, and you talked about, when you go out and you help people, of all types of people with clarity. That's part of your message. How would you say, if you're going into a room today and you're a guest speaker, what would you define as gaining clarity for their lives? How would you describe that to your listening audience?
Well, I have two things that come to mind. So, of course, the clarity that comes with when you actually don't have brain fog,
Okay.
on a sciencey level and a medical level, but then also the clarity, the internal clarity when you do that transformational work. So the brain fog, what I think is it's eye-opening. What I see people is when they actually start clearing and they, we get to root cause, they're like, whoa, I just thought I was always like just forgetful or just slow. I thought that's what normal was, that you're a parent, you're owning a business, you're doing this and that, you're in midlife. I thought that's just part of getting older and just stress. And when they realize what they need to do and you get to root cause, they awaken in a different way. Their minds are sharper. They can be present. They can do more. And it's actually quite beautiful. You're like, wow, you're clear now. This is what it feels to be good, to feel good, to be awake for everything. And then, of course, the other clarity, right? It's the transformational stuff, that if you can break the patterns, if you can take things into your own hands and create your own version of what you want to be. And so that's a different type of clarity.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah, that's great.
Love that. Dr. Remina, in terms of your career and everything you've seen in healthcare, is there a truth about health that you believe now that maybe younger Dr. Remina would have disagreed with?
Yeah, definitely. I think about when I was in training, the trend is as you age, you're pretty much aging is a disease. It's actually classified as a disease, right? But I think is how you age. You can still control quality for the most part. But what I was in training, while I was in training, is doing the standard care, doing the standard approaches. Eventually, your body does break down. And so you see people in the last decade of life in and out of the hospital and just declining. And I thought that was just the sad truth. But until I got more training and was exposed to more skills and tools and a different perception, you can do things that creates more longevity and optimal living. And your lifestyle has a big impact. Your lifestyle, your mindset, everything. So that truly changes not only how I live my life, but how I approach patients. And it makes a difference.
Yeah.
It does make a difference.
Yeah. Like I think I had like a 80-year-old like walk like longer than I did. There was like a 90-year-old that does yoga. Like it's quite amazing. Yeah. And it's a full, complete approach, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Amazing.
Do you ever find it difficult? Oh, I'm sorry. The recording went silent for a minute. I didn't know that you were talking. Do you ever find it difficult separating being Dr. Remina and mom?
I laugh at this because the other day I think I'm just mom, and then my kids are like, "Yeah, you're a doctor." Okay. And so they went to their pediatrician for their yearly checkup, and they're like, so you have to eat more fiber and less sugar. And so they come home and tell me, and like, Mom, the doctor said, and I'm like, oh, the doctor said, so you're gonna listen to whatever. Just As long as you're doing what they tell you, that's fine. So it's just funny because they say the term doctor, like I'm a doctor, but I'm still mom to them. It's a different concept.
That's awesome.
That's so funny. Dr. Remina, let's say somebody listening today, on paper, they look fine. Their lab results look great. Their vitals look great. But, without getting too into the medicine aspect of things, they know something's off deep down. What's one of the first steps that they could take in maybe trying to find out what's going on?
Well, first thing is to make sure you're with the right physician. Because if you're in a conventional system and they haven't been trained to see a bigger picture, then you're going to stick to the standard labs that tell you, yeah, everything is fine. And then they're going to say, it's probably in your head. And I know this because I was told that. And I know through my journey, I would not say that to a patient because if your body's off. You just have to dig deeper. What is it? So that's the first thing. Are you with someone you could work with that actually listens and will dig deeper? And if not, then go look for a functional medicine doctor who's been trained. But to add even more on that, yes. So the first thing is, can you work with someone? Are they going to listen? And what to do? Well, you can get lifestyle is big. I would dig into, okay, what are you doing daily? All these factors. And then, of course, add in the advanced labs, because advanced labs they're not the labs that you're going to see in a regular conventional office. For instance, if you look at basic labs, if you look like at a CBC, you're going to get just basic lab work that gives you, is your white count up? Do you have an infection, right? Or is your hemoglobin off? And it's just going to give you basics. But what you want is further testing, right? You want to see even more. Another example is hormones. Maybe simple blood work for like a couple of hormones, but there's more to it. And so a functional approach would be, if this is contributing to your symptoms, well, let's look at the entire biochemical pathway. So how are you metabolizing that hormone, and which structure, the form of hormone, are you building or not building, or, if there's a gap in the cycle or the building blocks, are you deficient in vitamins? Just there's so much to the picture, and it's not just one snippet in time. So having a full advanced lab panel would give you a big picture as well. So you combine best of both. You get the labs as well as dig into your lifestyle. And that would help you get to root cause over time.
Yeah. Because typically, if you go for a well visit, your physician's going to get a CBC, going to get a BMP on you, and maybe a thyroid panel.
Exactly. And a limited thyroid panel. Yeah.
No, exactly. And then, you still say, listen, I feel like this, and this, but all those lab work, that lab work could easily look normal on a lot of people, but there could still be a root cause down there that they don't look at. And I think vitamin deficiency is something that's completely overlooked because, and I mean, even personally, I actually found a physician that does that kind of stuff, but personally, like, it took me a while to find a physician that will look at those type of things.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy find for anybody listening. This is not something just simplistic that a lot of doctors will do or a lot of physicians will do. You have to kind of seek this out a little bit. But I think it's something that's completely overlooked from nutritional standpoint, things of that nature. You agree vitamins are something that's overlooked on panels.
Oh, for sure. The most common vitamin deficiency I see is a vitamin D3. Yeah. And that it shows up, and it's important with so many pathways, right? It can affect your mood, your immune system, your hormone. It just taps into everything, your brain, memory. It's simple, and it can mask if it's, missed. It can mask itself with symptoms. So that's just one of them. And then, of course, like the B vitamins, if you're absorbing them. And it brings me to like the food that you eat today. Even though if it's clean and organic, it's still depleted. The soil that it grows in is depleted. So naturally, you will still have a vitamin deficiency. So I always like to at least get the basic, check the vitamins. But then also, if you need a supplement, good quality supplement, and the most common one, of course, is vitamin D3 plus K2, if you're going to do that. You want to have that. That's with the absorption. Yeah. Yes. Definitely. It is overlooked, but there's an answer to it. So if you can find it, and then you can target what the answer is. And sometimes it's a simple fix, and sometimes it's more complicated. Yeah.
Sure. Interesting.
I like calling it the sunshine vitamin, right?
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is that we got to get out and we need to move our bodies. We need to exercise more. We need to have more balanced life. We need to be more connected to our world. We need to pause, but we need the sunshine vitamin.
Definitely the sunshine. Yes. And more of pausing sometimes. If you're go, 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 it's okay to pause. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. The thing that I see, in our society today is that we're lacking those things. We're lacking the sunshine. And I know that people that live in the Midwest or East Coast or whatever, they may get less sun than we do here. Well, maybe not where you live, but here in California, we get a lot of sun, right?
Yeah.
So, getting out and people are walking, people are moving, but because of the area in which people live, they may see sun 3 to 4 months out of the year.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's a problem. So, do you recommend that they take a vitamin D to help with their mood and their stableness and their life as far as maybe a supplement?
Sorry, it cut out when you were saying it paused for a second, right when you were saying when people in the Midwest.
Oh, okay. So for those people that live in the Midwest or the East, maybe they get a little bit less sun and they're lacking that vitamin D. Do you recommend taking a vitamin D or some type of supplement to help them with their moods and with their balance throughout the day?
Oh, yeah. In general, actually, even if you're out there getting sunlight, because there's a whole process for you to absorb it, break it down to make sure you have the right form. Even with that, most Americans are deficient in vitamin D. So I wanted to also mention that when you look at functional medicine, you look at optimal levels, whereas conventional, it will just give you a range. So that's why you may be normal, but feeling off. So if you look at optimal, and then adding that, like vitamin D is still one of the common ones. So whether you do get sunshine, but especially if you don't, then it would, for the most people, a good quality vitamin D3 plus K2 would be beneficial.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's interesting though that you bring that up, Russ, because there's definitely some geographic issues that people have with mental health and anxiety like that. Because when you're in a state, I mean, we're all across the country right now, obviously, so we cover all the different time zones right now between me and but in New York, sometimes it's gloomy for 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time with one day of sunshine, and then you get another 2, 3 weeks of gloominess.
Yeah.
And out in Cali, it could be, sunshine for 6 months.
I know.
And it's just, and Dr. Remina, you agree, right? I think that does play a big role in people's moods. Because I obviously, I am more driven in the summertime, I'll be honest with you, especially living in New York. I have more drive, I have more motivation when I can go outside at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. The sunlight's still shining, it's still 75 degrees. But in the wintertime, when it's 5 degrees and it's dark at 4 p.m., I'm less driven.
You don't like that 30 inches of snow that you could go out there and shovel and stuff like that? You don't enjoy that?
That does not sound good. Yeah.
Doesn't put me in that sympathetic state, as Dr. Remina would say.
Yeah. And, there are more incidences of having depression. There was a study I remember actually back in training that there certain regions with exactly what you said, they are tied to a lower mood. And, you see more incidences of like depression and seasonal depression too. So just maybe get a second home, maybe go visit Russell during the winter. Come to Texas. I don't know.
There you go.
That's the play. I like
that is the play.
I like that.
Yeah, because we have some mutual friends, Dan, you and I that live in the Midwest and the East Coast, and they get that seasonal depression, and it's like, we don't get it here. We just don't. I mean, we had summer from January till middle of March before we got our next. We were like that 1 week 95 degrees. It's like crazy, So we definitely don't lack here.
Yeah, that's it.
But the funny thing is, though, if we get 2 or 3 days of it, like I could see how it kind of dampens everything, right? So when you're talking 5 or 6 weeks, holy smokes, like no thanks, thumbs down, I'm out of here.
Dr. Remina, we'll probably make this the last question, but we have this quote or this statement that we'd like to end all the podcasts with, and I think you're the perfect person to answer this. And that statement is, wellness is not about perfection, it's about progress. What would you say that statement means to you?
Yes, it means you do something. I like to tell my clients and people I come across, everyone, that if you make one small change towards your goal in whatever aspect, then eventually it becomes a habit, and that's your journey. So even if it's a small progress, you're still getting closer to your goal, and you're making changes slowly every day.
Yeah, love that.
I love that.
You know, Dr. Remina was like, boom, there it is. There's the answer. Not drawn out, not, paragraphs. Boom, there it is.
Right. That's right.
Oh.
That is awesome.
Dr. Remina, where can people find you?
Yes, I'm almost, you can find me anywhere. So Instagram, I keep it simple. Instagram is the best one to follow up to date where I'm going, what's coming up, events. So DrRemina, Dr. Remina. My website, I also keep it simple. It's www.drremina.com. And my book as well, that's on Amazon and also at Barnes & Noble. So reach out to me. I'd love to connect. Any questions, or if you want to work with me, whatever, I'm here.
Amazing. Wonderful. Amazing. You have been great today. Thank you so much for coming on to Dual Coast and blessing us with your experience, your knowledge, everything about what you do. And I know we just got a glimpse of it, but thank you for sharing with all of us and all of our listeners today.
Oh, Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. Dr. Remina, this was powerful. This is my type of podcast. Russ knows that.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But we thank you so much for your time today. This was great. I hope our listeners got a lot out of this today. Please check out Dr. Remina on all her social media handles. Check out her website. Please go look at her book on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble. Follow us at all our handles, Dual Coast Podcast. Please check us out on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. We'll see everybody next week. Dr. Remina, thank you again so much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.